Hey everyone, it's Spalding here with another Star Wars Legends book review. Now this time we're going to be reviewing Deceived by Paul S. Kemp. Now this is the fourth event in the Legends timeline and the second book in the Old Republic anthology. So the first book is Revan, the second is obviously Deceived, the third is Fatal Alliance, and the fourth is Annihilation, which I don't have on display. Okay, so before I start the review, I just want you to know that there aren't going to be any spoilers for the first half of the review. I'll sort of just provide some basic thoughts and whether or not you should buy the book. And then for the second half, I'll make it very clear that I'm going to be talking about the more spoiler things that I think that should be discussed and sort of my analysis. So I'm not going to provide a summary because if you've already read the book, why hear a summary of it? I feel like a lot of reviews do that. Okay, so let's just contextualize the book. So this takes place right during and after the sacking of Coruscant in the Old Republic time period. So it's about 2,000 years before the original trilogy, and if you haven't seen the trailer known as Deceived, it's this is based on the video game Star Wars: The Old Republic. One of their trailers is called Deceived, and basically encapsulates the first 4 chapters, at least from one perspective, of this book. So if you kind of want to keep it up to a surprise, don't watch it. If you just want to watch it because, it was still interesting reading it anyways. It's basically like a shot-by-shot, line-by-line description of what happened within the trailer, then go ahead and watch it. It's interesting regardless. But it basically follows Darth Malgus, who is a Dark Lord of the Sith, Zerid, who's a smuggler, and Eren, who is a Jedi apprentice to Master Zalo, who dies in the sacking of Coruscant. So, what do I like about this book? Okay, well, the characters, all 3 of the main characters are super interesting. I really enjoyed Malgus' character because it's a very interesting take on a Dark Lord. You sort of get, I think a lot of problem with some Star Wars books is that it makes the bad guy just, I'm bad just because. But doesn't really delve into their psyche that much. And I think that with Malgus especially, it really explains, okay, yeah, he's an agent of chaos, but why does he want to see the destruction of the Republic, right? And it builds very nicely, if you're a fan of the Star Wars: The Old Republic video game, as to how he gets to, secede from the Empire. So all of those things are very interesting within his character. Also, something else I liked is that he is just a villain who wants to kill everything. He describes himself as just someone who wants to destroy everything and is an agent of conflict and destruction. And to see that contrasted with other members of the Sith at the time who are very cunning and a lot more political is very interesting to see Malgus have to battle with those 2 forces. So Malgus' character, fantastic. As I mentioned earlier, but I guess I'll explain more deeply, each chapter is 25 pages, which I'll get into that later, but this is me being OCD. But each chapter is pretty much 25 pages. And throughout the 25 pages, it splits pretty evenly between 3 characters, as I said, Malgus, Zerid, and Eren. So whenever it got to Malgus, it was usually pretty interesting. Zerid. Okay, Zerid's a smuggler, and his sort of motivation has to, involve around his daughter who suffered a tragic accident, and he's trying to smuggle spice. I really enjoyed his character. At times it bordered on the cliche when it went to him and his daughter, but I think that his character is very well defined, and I'll talk about it more in the spoiler section, but his resolution and a lot of the conflict that he faced near the end was, I think, very, very well executed. Okay, so then the last character was Eren. I really enjoyed Eren's character. I think, and I've mentioned this before, is that the way Star Wars Legends depicts Jedis is very different from how we see them in a lot of the movies. If you look at the Clone Wars era, they're all very, peaceful for the most part and pacifistic, and as are a lot of the Jedi at this time period. But Eren is consumed by anger and rage based on her master dying by the hand of Malgus. So she is very interesting because, yes, she has the powers of a Jedi, but she's enraged and utilizes her hate and fear and motivations to pursue and kill Malgus, which is very uncharacteristic for a Jedi. So I found her character very interesting, and I really enjoyed her chemistry with Zerid, which I'll get into later, but I really enjoyed those 2 characters meeting up. Okay, some of the things I didn't like. Now, this is going to sound really, really oddly specific, but I've talked to some people, and they agree with me So I'm just going to throw this out there just in case you've been feeling the same way I do. If you don't, then just forget this part. But all of the chapters are 25 pages, pretty much. Like, to the dot, 25 pages. Which, I don't know why he decided to do that. In a lot of other books, it's just, some chapters are short, some chapters are long. I just felt like, even if it wasn't gearing to a close for the end of a chapter, it was just, like, cut off. 25 pages, done. All right, let's move on. And I don't know. I don't know why he decided to parcel it up that way. I don't know. Maybe he has some sort of OCD, but I don't know. I didn't prefer that. But that's just a minor thing. Something else I didn't like was I felt as though, and I guess this is more spoilery, but I'm just going to say very vague, and I'll talk about it more in the spoiler section, is that some of those force powers that they used didn't really make that much sense, and I didn't really like that. So that was one thing. Secondly, the novel is very good in the first third and the last third. The middle is where it gets shaky. It just seems like it was drawn out a bit. Now, this book isn't very long. It's about 304 pages. So it's not very long compared to some of these other books. So it wasn't like it was drawn out or anything. It was drawn out at points, but I wish that there were a lot of things that I liked to see, like, expanded upon, and then other things that I had already seen, like for instance, the trailer. I mean, if you haven't seen the trailer, then, you know, but it was just shot by shot for 4 chapters, and I bet a lot of people have seen that trailer. And there were just other parts, especially in the, you know, the second third, that were just sort of, and I'll get into the specifics in the spoiler section, but once you get about, you know, 2/3 through the book, it starts to pick up, but that middle part is just, it's relatively slow and definitely could be sped up. But otherwise, I really enjoyed the book. I think it had a great resolution. It doesn't have a huge impact on the lore. If you're a fan of the Star Wars The Old Republic video game, you'll thoroughly enjoy this book, as well as the KOTOR video games. You'll like this book as well. There's a lot of good lore to that as well. Unfortunately, and these came out before the book, at least the first 3 did. Annihilation came out after. But unfortunately, and I guess this is more a problem with the video game, is that there's no tie-ins specifically to these characters within the game, and that's just me. I'm a huge fan of the game, so I wish I'd seen it. But even if you are not a fan, it's a very good read. All of the characters you care about, and Malgus has a very interesting motivation, which I will sort of talk about in the spoiler section. So if you haven't read the book, go pick it up. It's a quick read. It took me like 2 to 3 days to finish it, and it was very, very, very good. A little heart-wrenching near the end. So yeah, go ahead and pick up the book. So now I'm going to transition into the spoiler section. So if you haven't seen the book, go read it, okay? If you've read it or just want to tag along, I'll talk about it. Okay, so immediately what grabs me is, during the 2/3 that I mentioned that I didn't really like, is the utilization of Eren's force powers. Now, she does this so I was going to say that there isn't really a precedent for it and that she didn't really learn how to do it. And that is true to a point. So if you remember, Eren decides when she wants to leave the Alderaanian peace negotiations, she jumps off of the balcony of where she's staying and sort of uses the force so that she doesn't take a harsh impact. Okay, that's fine. I've seen Jedi do that all the time. Then flash forward to now she's getting shot down in basically the atmosphere of a planet. So she's like thousands of feet in the air, and Malgus shoots down her ship, and she and Zerid are just falling at terminal velocity towards Coruscant's surface, and she decides, you know, it's a good idea. I did this when I fell off a balcony. Why don't I just, you know, suspend my fall and be fine? Which doesn't make any sense. And she and Zerid fall, and they're like pretty much fine. I mean, she's like a little tired, and she says that she's exhausted, but she just fell thousands of feet and survived. And I mean, I had to do a double take. I was like, wait, what did I just read? So that was a big problem for me. And then they use it again in the book as like, and it didn't really even need to be used. So I wasn't a big fan of that force power. That was just, it just drew me out because it just, I mean, it was borderline comedic that they would just fall thousands of feet and be totally fine. Okay, secondly, I really enjoyed the ending. Usually I talk about how I don't like the endings of some of these books, but as a self-contained Star Wars story, it was very good. The ending of Zerid and Eren's story I thought was really nice. It was very heartfelt. I think that part of their relationship at times wasn't, and it wasn't showed to the best of, where it could have been. And I guess I'll explain that in a second. But the ending felt nice. It felt sweet. It was just wrapped up in a little bow. I appreciated it. I think that throughout the novel, Kemp could have done a better job of showing that they were interested in one another. It seemed like they were almost siblings, like there wasn't a lot of indication that they would be together until Eren kissed Zerid, or Zerid kissed Eren, I forgot which one did it, but it was just like, oh, okay, I guess they're interested in each other. And they had mentioned settling down on Dantooine, and that was cool and cute and whatever. But I feel like if there was more flirtation, because there wasn't really flirtation at all. So I think me as a reader was like, okay, I guess they're like brother and sister or whatever. So I like that they ended up together. I just wish that he had earned that more. Speaking of relationships, one that was done very, very well was between Malgus and Alina, his Twi'lek slave. I think that motivation was very interesting. And as a player of the game, when you watch that trailer, you're like, who in the heck is this Twi'lek person with the twin guns? Because she's never in the base game, obviously, because he kills her. And I really liked the sort of contrast between, wow, okay, Eren and Zerid are getting together, and at the same time, that relationship is flourishing. I guess that's kind of after, but you see the relationship flourish, then Malgus immediately ends his. And I think it added a lot to his character to see, yeah, he loves Alina, but he knows that she's his weakness. So very interesting. I really enjoyed Malgus's character. I think that it was very well rounded, very well developed, even though he just wanted to destroy everything. It made it very clear as to why. Sort of like an unstoppable force in a very politicized and very, cunning environment, and just see him kind of like it was like a bull in a china shop. So Malgus was very well done. Some other spoilery things. Probably my favorite part of the book was when Zerid had to choose whether to kill Volta or not, because Volta knew that he had a daughter and could tell the Hutts about that. So I really enjoyed a lot of the dilemma as to whether Zerid would just kill his helpless prisoner and shove him out of an airlock. I think while reading that, I didn't know which way it was going to go, whether he was going to kill him or just let him go. And I think that Kemp did a very brave thing to have one of his main protagonists just kill a prisoner. So I thought that was very, very interesting. One of my other favorite parts, which happened at the exact same time, I think the book finishes off very strongly in the last 50 pages, is where Malgus keeps Eren alive. Because you can tell he's a very honorable person. So from Eren sparing Alina, and then him to spare her, I think that was very, very well done. And I honestly thought Eren was going to die. I was like, well, this is it. She's not in the base game. We're never going to see her again. But him sparing her was a big show of his honor. And I really think that they did that character justice. So playing the game, and now in Onslaught in Star Wars: The Old Republic, if you haven't played the game, you're going to be kind of confused, but now Malgus is back in the game, and it's very interesting to see his character, and I think it really embellishes and makes the game more enjoyable now that I've seen his character and understand, oh, okay, so that's how he got to be just a Darth in the Sith to seceding from them. So all of that was very interesting. Okay. So overall, very, very good book. Read it if you get a chance. I highly recommend that you pick it up and read all of the other Old Republic novels. Once I'm done reviewing all of them, then I will go ahead and rank them in order of preference. And then once I finish all of my Star Wars Legends book reviews, I don't know how many I'm going to do, then I will do a full tier list as I mentioned. Okay, let me know what you think of the book. Go out and read it. I really enjoyed it, and have a good day.